Welcome back, MTG Joe here. Today we're going to be doing a deck tech for a brew for the upcoming Brothers War release. This is a standard deck. I was invited thanks to Wizards to take place in the Early Access event this Thursday, so we'll be playing this deck amongst a bunch of different other decks in the event, testing them out in best of one. To start off, just see what's cool and new with the set. This is an artifact themed set that does have some other synergies in terms of humans, unearth. So a lot of cool stuff. We got Mishra, we got Meld coming back. So a lot of cool things coming here. But today we're going to look at a blue-white Azorius Soldier tribal deck and seeing how this new tribe that got a buff in terms of playable cards fares in terms of the new meta. So we're going to go over, just kind of preface, this is a untested deck. We will test it during the event and kind of see there's some flex spots. Something you'll notice is my initial deck is just all creatures and lands. We're not playing removal right now. I just really want to test out some of these creatures to see how they play, and then also kind of tailor our removal in terms of what makes the most sense. So starting off, we got a soldier at home. Well, not a soldier. There's not really that many good playable one-drops beyond the recruitment officer, which we'll touch base on. But the Hopeful Initiate plays a role. It gets bigger with all your other creatures that attack, and then it allows you to redistribute counters to kind of remove them and deal with artifacts and enchantments. This is an artifact themed set, so dealing with artifacts with just a static ability that's on your Hopeful, or an activated ability on your Hopeful Initiate, is pretty useful. We see this card oftentimes get played in the mono white decks as well. A new card that we have as a 4 of is Recruitment Officer, a 1-mana 2/1, where we have a mana sink if we flood, that we get to look at the top 4 cards of our library, reveal a creature card with mana value 3 or less, put it into your hand. So this allows us in the late game, if we do draw it, it's a 1-drop that we can sink mana into and hopefully get more creatures from it. We have Dennick, Pious Apprentice, which happens to be a soldier. Didn't realize this, I knew it was a human. But this is a life linker that can get bigger. It also is basically 2 bodies in 1. And I think this shuts off Unearth. I'm not 100% sure, but let me know in the comments. Can't target spells or abilities. You're not targeting, you're casting it from your graveyard, so no, I don't think it would. But it does allow us even just to get some advantage when stuff dies late game, and just having an evasive body is good. Guardian of Nubenalia is one of the staples in the mono white aggro deck in standard best of 1, letting us kind of enlist our other creatures to get it bigger and then give us indestructible if we discard a card, so it lets us push through damage, also scry off the top of our library. We then go to Harbin Vanguard Aviator, 2-mana 3/2 flying, which on its own is good stats. We're playing it as a 3 of, given that it is a legendary creature. And then whenever you attack with 5 or more soldiers, creatures you control get +1/1 and gain flying till the turn. I don't know how reliable we'll get the 5 creatures, but Resolute Reinforcements is going to be helping us out with that. So I'm really playing this as a 2-mana 3/2, and its additional attacks is a bonus if we hit it. The Resolute Reinforcements flash spell that lets us put in 2 bodies that both happen to be soldiers. A couple copies of Thalia. Best of 1 tends to be more creature focused than spell based, and oftentimes the spell based decks, just given the fact that they, like, even stuff like auras, or not the green white enchantments deck, it slows them down for a turn, but then they deal with Thalia. Fable the Mirror Breaker decks, they can generally generate a bunch of treasure anyway, so it's not as kind of back-breaking as it is in some of the internal formats where everybody's playing like 1-mana spells. We have Valiant Veteran, 2-mana 2/2 that gives us a Lord effect for all our other soldiers, and then we can use it as a mana sink late game to give all our creatures a big buff. So really just looking to be able to spend their mana when we don't have cards in hand. So Valiant, we have Dennick, we have Recruitment Officer, ways that we're mono white, when they run out of cards, they have nothing to do with their mana. And then we're trying out some of the new 3-drops. We have Siege Veteran, Luminarch Aspirant at home. So 3-mana 2/2, beginning of combat, put a 1/1 counter on target creature you control, and then whenever a non-token soldier you control dies, it leaves a body behind as a soldier. So this might help to, even with removal, have bodies around for the Harbin to trigger its effect. And then we have Sure Strike Officer, 3 mana, 2/3 flying. Whenever it attacks, create a 1/1 soldier, and then you can tap 3 untapped soldiers you control to draw a card. So even in board states stalls, you can draw some cards off that. And then Myrel, Shield of Argive, 4 mana, 3/4, and it's basically Grand Abolisher style effect. During your turn, your opponents can't cast spells or activate abilities of artifacts, creatures, or enchantments. So it lets you kind of attack into a sure thing. Your opponent can't Flash and Wandering Emperor, any of that. Whenever it attacks, you get to create X 1/1 soldiers, where X is the number of soldiers you control. So it allows you another way to just make more bodies. So we have Adakar Waste, we have Deserted Beach, we have Ajanjo, and then we have Fortified Beachhead, which is a special land that only exists for soldiers, where it's an additional land. So when it enters the battlefield, you may reveal a soldier from your hand. If you do, it enters the battlefield tapped unless you may reveal a soldier from your hand. Fortified Beach enters the battlefield tapped unless you reveal the soldier card this way or you control a soldier. So basically it's going to be a untapped land, another one that's good for aggro, and then it can be a mana sink for our Anthem style effects, and then just an Otawaro and some plains and islands. So that's kind of the core of the deck I was thinking. There's a couple cards I was also thinking of. There's Protect the Negotiators, 2 mana counterspell that counters for each creature you control, that like 4 spikes, and then if you kick it, you get to create a white soldier. And then there's 2 other 1-drops that are colorless. We have Yotian Frontliner, 1 mana, 1/1 that can come back from the graveyard with an earth, and then it can, when it attacks, it gives a buff to another creature you control. And then there's also Spectral Sentinel, 1 mana, 1/2 protection from multicolor, and then whenever a non-basic land enters the battlefield, an opponent you control, basically if your opponent plays a non-basic, you gain a life. So pro multicolor could be relevant depending on the removal and how the decks line up. I don't think this one is as good. I'd probably play this over the Hopeful Initiate potentially. And there's also the 2 mana Flash Flying that you could return a creature to your hand. There is a potential way that you can build this deck as with Resolute Reinforcement, Protect the Negotiator, and that to just be like kind of a flash tempo-y style. You can play stuff like Fading Hope, March of the Otherworldly, Fateful Absence, a whole bunch of other kind of removal options that we can add in here as well. There's the 1 mana Destroy Target Tapped Creature, and then you can kick it. There's like a bunch of removal options we can kind of play with that, but right now I want to really try out these 3 cards here, see how they play out, because that's really going to shape up some of the top end of the deck. I think these lower end cards, like the lower curve cards, are all fairly reasonable on their own. So we're going to come out with that. Like I said, I'll have this video up on Thursday once we get some games in with it. We'll do some tweaks along the way as we play it to see how it works out. And we'll be playing a bunch of other decks, so if you are looking for content, make sure to subscribe to the channel. And then what we do on the channel as well, if you're new here, I go through a meta breakdown of every format on Arena, looking at stats from Untapped GG, which gives us a whole bunch, hundreds of thousands of games of Magic that get played on Arena, and give you the best decks in each format. We come out with those weekly, so if you're looking for what are the best decks in New Standard, I'll have a video up on this upcoming weekend as well with the new cards from Brothers War. In any case, thanks for watching. Hope you have a great one and stay safe out there.